Hey, what's up you guys? My name is Rogath of the Weekly Valor Cap, and today I'm going to bring you another episode of Rogath Rambles. This is episode number 2, and I hope you'll enjoy it. So guys, welcome back. What this episode is about is basically, in short terms, about the different World of Warcraft expansions, including vanilla as well as the evolution of the World of Warcraft throughout the expansions. And let's just get right to it, shall we? So first of all, if we're going to talk about vanilla, vanilla was kind of the time that everyone thought it was a hard game, and I guess it was. This is before I started playing, FYI. I mean, I had a character on a friend's account, but I only ever got, like, my highest character in vanilla, like I said, was on a friend's account, and I got it to level 14. That was a warlock, by the way. Do not remember the name. It's kind of sad. You should always remember the name of your first character, but I don't. One of the things that I think made the game hard was the unbalanced stat weights. What are these unbalanced stat weights? Things such as Spirit on melee DPS gear. You can see a paladin wanting to go Retribution for the fun of it, you know. Which I know some people did. They would have like strength gear, which obviously fit their class, but they would also experience having Spirit on that gear, and that just didn't make sense. Sure, back then it gave them health regen and it also gave them mana regen, but they didn't need that. They had Judgment of Wisdom back then that gave them mana on hit, and it worked very, very well up until Cataclysm, where it was changed. So, or maybe that was a mob. I think it was a Cataclysm. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was a Cataclysm where they just got one single judgment instead. Anyway, up until then, that worked pretty well. But also, if we completely ignore paladins, we can go and see DPS warriors, which there was some, there was a bunch of those, even though Prot was the best warrior spec because of the tier sets. But they would experience Spirit and gear as well, and I guess it was just kind of weird. I would find it weird. Probably not back then, but now I would say, oh hell no to that kind of gear. And I think because of the unbalanced stat weights, putting Spirit on gear instead of additional strength and stamina, I feel like that might have been one of the things that truly made the game hard. But I feel like that's in a bad way, because it's not because the game is actually harder than it is now. It was because unbalanced stat weights were retarded. People back then thought that the raids were hard, very much harder than they are now. And I feel like, you know, a bunch of those raids were released before the game had even been out for a year. And at the end of the day, I think a lot of people found the raids hard because they truly didn't have a clue. There were guilds out there that quickly got a hold of it and were like, yep, that's what we're gonna do, we're good at this game. And for them, I just don't think the encounters were as hard. I mean, I hear people talking about how it was healing back then and tanking back then. Not so much DPS, because I don't want to talk to a lot of DPSers or players that played DPS back then. But what I hear is like tanks would not have a very hard job at all, whereas healers, they wouldn't either, because they would go from spamming their best heal, but they would just use a lower rank version of that heal and ignore that mana loss, because sometimes that was just enough healing. So people did that, and ultimately they didn't have a very hard fight. Compared, I mean, I'm saying it was easy, but it was not that much harder than it is today. It just wasn't. I mean, I'm gonna get back to that later, by the way. So just leaving it at that. But I feel like a lot of people probably didn't have a clue back then of what they were doing. And that's why things were so difficult for them, because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, so everything seemed hard because they didn't know how to change, or how to fix their problems with it, you know? Other things that possibly made the game hard was the lack of quests. I hear that there was a big lack of quests there back then, and you had to grind a few of or quite a lot of your levels. And I know that if that was today, a lot of people would quit based on that. I quit Ion based on that, and I actually, back when it came out, thought it was a better game than WoW back in Wrath. I actually thought Ion was better than Wrath. But there was too much grinding, so ultimately I went back to WoW. So there you go. Grinding just doesn't suit me, and it doesn't suit a lot of other Western players. And I feel like that's possibly why people thought the game was hard. It was a great game back then as well. It was new, it was fresh, it brought a shitload of new things to the market. But the grinding just made it so hard, and nowadays people would just quit a game because of that, straightforward, and that is probably why they implemented so many quests. Now if we move on to the Burning Crusade, people still thought, overall, from what I have heard, that this was an awesome expansion. A lot of people are saying this was the best times of WoW, because people thought it was just so awesome and it was still difficult. And with this expansion, I mean, they brought in Retribution Paladins, or DPS Warriors, DPS Shamans, DPS Druids, and other DPSers that weren't really viable in vanilla, as like in the same sense. Like I said previously, a bunch of players played DPS Warrior, but with Burning Crusade, they introduced 2 sets that gave bonuses to DPS Warriors and other DPS specs. So that was just fucking brilliant. And also, they like made Prod Paladins very viable, and I know for a fact that a lot of people, this was the game-breaking moment, because they wanted to play Prod Paladins so badly. And I still think Prod Paladins is the funniest tank to play, without a doubt. I think if every other tank is here, Prod Paladins are like way up here where I can't even see them anymore, because there's so much awesomeness to play. This includes so much awesomeness. Won't go into detail why, but I feel like they are. I really feel like they're much more fun. With Burning Crusade, 25 mans were introduced, and there were a lot of those instead of 40-man raids. I don't know if there actually are 40-man raids in Burning Crusade, but at least there were a lot more 25-man raids. And I know for a fact that a lot of people found those cooler than the 40-man raids. 40-man raids, I hear people like go nostalgic whenever they hear of the whole idea, but it was so much to maintain. And you have to gather 40 people, guys, 40 players in one raid group, and if one guy couldn't make it, they were fucking screwed. So, I mean, a lot of people thought this was a good change, that it was 25-man raids instead, because they wanted the big raids, but 40-man were just too much. So yeah, a lot of people found this to be really great. Also, raiding was, I mean, people still say the raiding was hard back then. However, due to what I've heard, or according to what I've heard, it was mainly due to the attunements that you needed for every single raid. I mean, whenever you had to go through a raid, whenever you had to progress, whenever you picked up a new recruit, you had to help them through Karazhan and through Serpent Shrine Cavern and through the thing with Rogathx and then Black Temple and so on and so forth. And people found that hard. But I'm gonna correct you there, ladies and gentlemen, because I played in Burning Crusade. I didn't play retail, but hear me out, and I know this is not as legit as retail server, but I played on a Bliss-like private server. Now, the only things they ever raided back then was Serpent Shrine Cavern and Black Temple, as well as the Rogathx 5-man dungeon. Those were the only content that was the only content I ever went through. However, I experienced the attunements. I spoke to people doing the attunements, and ultimately, their reasons for saying that raiding was much harder back then was wrong, straightforward wrong, because the attunements were not difficult. They were time-consuming. And time consumption, a big time consumption, is not the same as high difficulty level. It's 2 completely different things. Having something take shitloads of time does not mean it's difficult. Motion vaults, now, for my guild, takes us about an hour or 2 hours maybe to go through. But it's ridiculously easy for us to do. Whereas, Throne of Thunder, we spend 1 hour getting the 2 first bosses in there. We're still progressing, by the way. We're 4 out of 12. Pretty good. We're pretty decent, at least. But it's still fucking difficult for us to just go in and smash Horidon. Jinrog is not much of a problem, obviously, but Horidon is always a difficulty for us. And even it doesn't take a lot of time. It's just difficult, whereas Motion Vaults take a lot of time, but it's super easy. It's 2 completely different things. You just cannot compare them. Stop doing that, ladies and gentlemen. And I see it all around the world. No matter where I see it. I mean, I hear people saying, this game is so difficult, and that's why. Because this shit takes so much time. That's not it being difficult. That's it being a long time thing. That's like saying that gearing up in World of Warcraft is fucking difficult. No, it's a long-term objective, like I talked about in my previous video. Gearing up is a long-term objective. It's not particularly difficult until you get to the part where you start raiding heroics and crap like that. Normal modes are sometimes difficult. Heroic raiding is difficult, definitely. But getting to that point is time-consuming, not freaking difficult. There is a difference. A huge, huge difference, people. Please understand that. With Burning Crusade, they introduced very, very different mechanics, such as the Horizon chess event, which is still the favorite boss fight to a lot of people. I don't like it particularly much. I think it's cool, but I don't like it very much. But a lot of people do. A lot of people still want encounters like that again. And I can see why. I can definitely see why. If it came out, I would be excited. I wouldn't like it that much, but I would be excited because it's so much different. But people found that awesome. That's why TBC was such a good expansion. One of the things that was with Black Temple was that it was supposed to be the end content for Burning Crusade. However, they released it too soon, and with that, it meant that they had to come up with Sunwell, just all of a sudden like that. They had introduced Killjade and all that, but they had to come up with it for Burning Crusade all of a sudden. Well, they did a good job. They had to do that. And that was a mistake on their side, so to speak. Even though it was successful, it was kind of a mistake. And ultimately, I mean, I kind of feel like it pulls Burning Crusade down a little bit because of the fact that things were so rushed. And usually it goes bad. Like I said, it went well here, but it's just so big of a risk. Wrath. This was the first expansion in which I had my own account on a retail server. And things that were with it was they introduced the looking for group tool. Back then people thought it was super awesome, super duper great. Things that people didn't like very much was the remake of raids. You know, they took Onyxia's Lair and brought it back. They took Next Rammus and brought it back. People were excited about that. But there were a lot of people that were mad about that. Reasons a lot of people did not like the remake of raids because while they were nostalgic, they felt like Blizzard were not doing their job. They weren't coming out with new content. They just remade the old ones, the old raids, and people thought it was a slack on their back or their perhaps. People felt like Blizzard were slacking at that time. I thought it was super exciting because I knew how awesome the old Next Rammus was. I had talked to people, but a lot of people weren't happy with it either. A lot of people were pissed off. I mean, I was super excited about killing the Lich King. Holy crap, are you kidding me? I was all up in that shit. But some people felt like this was really bad that they actually released the Ashcraft Citadel because of the fact that going through Warcraft 3 and going through the all the WoW content up until Ashcraft Citadel, it was like Lich King was the ultimate boss of WoW, not Sargeras like people are talking about now, but Lich King. A lot of people weren't crazy about us being able to kill him because that was like we were way too overpowered. Lore-wise, we weren't. Lore-wise, right now, we would be way too overpowered if we could kill Sargeras. I just realized to be close to the camera. Because the only one that has ever hurt him lore-wise is Saurfang. So that just wouldn't make sense. I mean, they could make it make sense because they write the lore, no problem. They could do that. But I know for a fact that I would be super pissed. I think, ultimately, if they made Sargeras a killable boss, I would probably rage quit and not play for quite a while. I would return because I want to see the end, but I would have the urge to constantly quit. Now, a lot of people were saying back then that the only good thing about Wrath of the Lich King at all was Ulduar. And it was because they thought Ashcraft Citadel was actually too easy with the buffs that you constantly got. Right now, or at the end, and right now also, Ashcraft is still there, you get a buff when you enter the place. That increases your fucking damage down by 50%. Nowadays, I mean, they nerfed tier 14 so that all bosses took 10% more damage and have 10% less health. But that's nothing compared to the fact that you have your damage and health increased by 50% in Ashcraft Citadel. That is crazy, people. That is fucking crazy. And I thought it was annoying I mean, it helped our progress, definitely, but, or it helped our farm, actually, because my guild took down Lich King before the buff to you guys came in, but it helped our farm runs a lot. But we were really annoyed by it because it felt like Ashen Citadel, the ultimate raid in Wrath, the ultimate raid feel was gone, like that. That's why a lot of people are saying that Ulduar was the only good thing. And a lot of people nowadays are still saying Ulduar is the best raid ever. And they're so pissed because WoW is going downhill because they don't make raids that are as good as Ulduar. They try to make up for that with Throne of Thunder, but a lot of people are saying it's not quite the same thing. It's not as fun. I think it's pretty equal. So a lot of people were also pissed because easier encounters were introduced in Wrath, or so people said. I don't know about that. I didn't feel like Wrath was particularly easier than TBC, the content that I went through, but nevertheless, a lot of people were saying this, and I can understand it. Cataclysm, the shit expansion. One of the reasons, content was super hard in the beginning, so people quit because it was too difficult for them. Then the nerf came around because of all the QQ, and a lot of other players quit because it got too easy for them. So there already Blizzard had lost a lot of players just to that. They remade zones. An example would be Hyjal, which is my favorite zone in the entire game. So I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Blizzard. That's the one thing I absolutely love about Cataclysm. I quit in Cataclysm, in MoB, when I went through it. I love Hyjal. How badly do I want to go back there? I can't describe it. That feel that I get when I level in that place, man, I love that. I would love that to last forever. Anyway, a lot of people were mad again, like for the same reason that they remade raids. They remade zones. Why didn't they come up with the new ones? I love the way they remade the zones for level 1 to 60. I love that. Although I still find the quest boring, I love the fact that they changed it. I just thought that was really cool. So yeah, I almost fell there. I'm tired as fuck. It's like 11 o'clock. I'm tired as hell. So one of the things that they also did here was make it so the 10-man and 25-man raids gave the same loot. Up until this point, 25-mans were more difficult than 10-mans, just statistically, and it gave better loot as well. At this point, they gave the exact same loot and had the exact same difficulty, more or less, depending on the fights. And a lot of people were pissed about this because now the reason to do 25-man raids were gone. People still did them because they had the raid size for it, but the reason were gone. The reasons were gone. And I can see why people were pissed, but this was, in my opinion, this was probably one of my favorite changes to WoW ever, because I love 10-man raiding. Not because it was easier, but because I just like that tight-knit group that you have. I love it. I love it. The sad part is that you're talking about changing it back now. And I feel like if they did that, I probably wouldn't want to do 10-man raiding anymore, because the difficulty would be, it would be too easy. I would probably force myself to expand our guild into a 25-man guild. And I just prefer 10-mans. I really do. Big guilds, no problem. 10-man raiding is just better than 25 in my opinion. Another thing here was the fact that there was no more Warcraft lore to build upon. I mean, Deathwing was in Warcraft 2, which a lot of people are forgetting. I think it was Warcraft 2. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was Warcraft 2, not that it was Warcraft 1, but I really think it was Warcraft 2. Anyway, people were saying they had no more lore to build build on from Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. They brought back Deathwing though, and with this, I mean, he was supposed to be the biggest badass of the history of WoW. Of bosses that we had been able to fight, because he was like the fucking weapon of the Titans themselves. But he was so easy. With the Raid Finder as well, being introduced here. Man, how easy could it get, is what people told me. And heck, I'm disappointed, even though I didn't play, that Deathwing wasn't the hardest encounter that have yet to be introduced. That had been introduced so far. And part of me, because of the lore fanatic that I am, is still disappointed by the fact that Deathwing still isn't the hardest boss that has ever come out. I think it should have been the ultimate challenge for every guild. It should be so much harder than anything else. And then I realized that people would comment and saying, well, if it was that much harder, like you say, people wouldn't be able to beat him. I'm not saying it should be like way above them. I'm just saying I think it should be more difficult than any other boss that's ever been in the game, and to ever be introduced to the game, unless they introduce Titans as bosses. It's just my 2 cents there. Let's move on to Mop, ladies and gentlemen. We are reaching the end of the episode. Mop. No more Warcraft lore. We lie again, ladies and gentlemen. Pandas were introduced. People didn't like that. It was turning into Pokemon with pet battles and pandas. Panda pet battles, pet panda battles, pet battle pandas. It was a lie. The pandas have been out forever. They were in Warcraft. Jim Stormstout, for the love of God. He helped create the new horde, ladies and gentlemen. He helped create the new horde. He helped Rexxar, he helped Thrall, and he helped all those fuckers up in Orgrimmar back in Warcraft 3. He did. And I love that character so much. I really love him. He's so fucking... I'm fanboying way too much. Let's move on. So, people were disappointed by the shop, the idea of the shop. Personally, I think this is super awesome. Because it's like more emotional. And I feel like the story here is more driven. And I like the fact that they write the lore now, rather than building it upon lore from 3 other games. So, I mean, it's super cool. It's super cool, definitely. And I love it. Like I said, I can't really describe it more than that. I just love the way that it's about emotions, and it's about horde fighting the horde and keeping their emotions in place, and the Alliance like going nuts upon the horde as well, and keeping their emotions in place. And suddenly the Alliance are partly fighting the Alliance, you know, with Jaina going crazy and her not wanting to do the same thing as Varian, and then Tyran doesn't want to do the same thing as Varian, and then blah blah blah. So yeah, and a lot of people are saying that it's still too easy. And with that, I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, describe to me how the game is more easy now than before, in the slightest detail. If you feel like that's the case, leave a comment explaining it to me in the slightest detail, the very slightest detail. I will read your comment and I will respond. Reasons that I have as to why this is not easier than before is there's more stuff to do, more stuff that you gotta maintain. There's Garage and the Horde, the Civil War, just too freaking awesome. And quite frankly, the game cannot be easier than before because it's less alt-friendly. You have to spend more time in your main to keep up to date. And quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, Blizzard specifically said, and I can't find the source for you because I found it on Reddit, but it was taken from the Blizzard, some of the Blizzard people, that they have on purpose made the new World of Warcraft raid encounters require more off of each person in the raid group, thereby creating harder raid content than ever before. When Blizzard specifically goes out and says that, I feel like your argument is kind of invalid. You might feel like it's easier, but when Blizzard specifically says this, then I feel like it doesn't really matter what you think, because it's more of a fact in that case. They specifically programmed the bosses to be more difficult. And again, if we go back, you probably think the bosses are harder or easier because in vanilla you had the unbalanced stat weights, and therefore you didn't have the same potential in your character as you have now. You don't have the achievements anymore. But guess what? They didn't make the game hard. Stat weights were retarded. Achievements were time consuming. None of it was difficult, it was just dumb and time consuming. So there you go. Now, I feel like if you're gonna tell me, if you're one of those people who are gonna comment and say, like, Blizzard lies again, or Blizzard is never right, or Blizzard always lies, quite frankly, I will respond with this. If you say that,
you're probably not a very bright person, are you? I don't think so.
That wraps it up. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Again, I'm your Kiki Rogath of the Weekly Battle Cap, and if you like this video, please click the like button and leave a comment below telling me what you think about all this. And if you liked what you see, check out the previous episodes and subscribe somewhere up there. I can never remember what side it is at, but somewhere up here, in the corners here, somewhere up here. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. I'll see you later.